Hello, dear viewers, and first of all, those who are in Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, those who are here, dear our speakers today, in spite of the fact that now it seems that totally different topics are being discussed, beginning of the NATO summit today in Washington, and really fresh feeling that we have still after the military crimes of Russia, the hits on Ukrainian cities, including the capital, and today is the day of mourning. However, there are questions and there are topics that require not just discussion but quick proposals and solutions. And actually, in Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, we have planned for quite some time to collect the best, well, not just experts, but people who have gone through their own professional path in the field of both energy and diplomacy, of some external work and energy work in different fields. Why is that important now? Due to three reasons. First of all, we see the hits that were made also on the 8th of July. It was aiming at scaring people in the hospital, and we know that there were also destroyed some energy powers. So it's total energy war from the side of Russia. It's total war from the side of Russia. And one of the elements of this total war is destroying Ukrainian energy infrastructure in order to make it impossible, the functioning, like what I see, big cities, primarily. So this is a targeted work. Crimes that are targeting at destroying Ukrainian energy with an intention of going to the level where the internal problems in this sector will be critical. And in the opinion of our enemies, that will create readiness of the country to capitulate, to give up, and some internal dissatisfaction caused by these reasons, of course. So I am following that really attentively, even though it's not my field, because I see that as for the ordinary Ukrainian, I haven't found the answer in the claims of Ukrainian authorities. What is the plan? What are the strategic projects that, well, it's quite expensive for the development in the future, and what are the actions as for now, for this winter, because we have to survive the critical point this winter. Secondly, they explained that the sources of financing are different, that they don't intersect, it's a separate issue, and I see different plans of our donors and where the government of Ukraine are submitting requests, and I see that it is intersecting, and the focus is on the issue of 7 from today, years. And instead of it, some donor actions like supply of emergency or supply of some generating capacities, even some mobile capacities, mobile generators, as far as I understand, a lot of them are just not used. So we use just one from American aid, and this also causes some questions, and of course, a very serious question if we are going to hear that, just like I heard the last week, two claims. The first one, first of all, the confirmation of the statement of the president of Ukraine to ensure 1 gigawatt of capacities, energy capacities till the end of the year, and the second of the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Mr. Khmelnytsky, that they are developing a really good framework, a special system for Ukraine to prepare the woods. And I have nowhere to heat my apartment with the woods, and just as a citizen, I'm worried because I don't see any interaction here with a public initiative and like some self-survival or like procurement. Those who have money, we are trying to find some generators, accumulators that are procured by businesses. And from the other side, the state is mentioning that they are taking responsibility on themselves. So all of it, responsibility of the state, the initiative for ensuring the citizens with that, and priorities in energy sector of the different directions. What kind of generation is that? Is that atomic energy, or should it be generation of like the new age, or that is something ecological? And in general, do we have some kind of a plan and interaction of different initiatives, in particular with the donors? Because we do understand that our internal capacities are limited, and we have to build now the realistic and clear model of what we are asking in, like, how much do we need that via which directions and mechanisms. And to these questions, I personally, well, don't have an answer. Therefore, I'm really glad to see here the invited guests, and I'd like to mention that maybe the difference of this event is that I trust each of those persons. Yuri Kostenko, who's been in this field for a long time, Minister of Environmental Protection and Nuclear Safety of Ukraine. He was representative of the Board of Governors of the IAEA of Ukraine. And Mr. Yuri is interested not just in nuclear, like not use of nuclear weapons, but also nuclear energy. So I would like to say straight away, Lana Zerkal, here it's very important that the ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary she is, and she made a lot of important steps with being just the deputy minister of foreign affairs of Ukraine. But later on in Naftogaz, and in some time she's been helping the ministry in general of energy. Well, and now she continues to do that in different initiatives, and very often she is communicating with our foreign partners and donors because they need also some alternative opinion. And I would like to hear especially this aspect of our external interaction. Alexander Dombrovsky, now he is not in his position. He used to be the People's Deputy of Ukraine and the governor. But now in totally new role, it's a new project which is working on green energy. That is how we can say it, right? But what is now really needed is the global 100 renewables. In each word there is explanation. 100 renewable energy and global. But I am most interested in your opinion, not probably about global today, but about our needs, what we can and how we can cover, including business. That is how to create the conditions to give. Well, as far as I understand, it would be better to give kind of not the fish straight away, but at least the fishing rod, so that the business can close those gaps that the state doesn't always cover. So, Mr. Yuri, the floor is yours. First, you mentioned your vision, and then we will talk in a discussion. Please. Thank you. As far as I've been the People's Deputy since 1990, and I've been working in Energy Committee of Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine in 4 positions. I remember all the topics for energy strategy of Ukraine since we declared our independence. And I think that here is where Ukrainian state policy should have started as an independent state, with solving the issue of energy supply. Why did we have to focus on that since the very beginning of Ukrainian independence? because we were almost totally dependent on supply of energy from Russia, 100% of nuclear things, 80% of oil and gas. And in Ukraine, we have the colossal number of uranium, also oil and gas. And in the first calling 1990, 1994, on the level of committees, we were discussing the strategy of independent state. That was the first convocation, and we were talking about diversification of supply of nuclear oil, and then we signed the protocol of intentions to build the enterprise in Ukraine to produce own nuclear fuel with Westinghouse company. The same about the supply of alternatives to Russian oil, that is transnational oil corridor from the Near East to European countries as the most economically beneficial. And there was interconnector built at the Zaporozhye. So the topic of supplying Ukraine with fuel, unfortunately, it hadn't been implemented by legislative bodies in certain laws, and neither in the actions of the government. Therefore, Ukraine, during all those years of independence, as a matter of fact, was dependent on Russia. In terms of energy, first of all, therefore, they were using this energy leverage to cause pressure on Ukraine when we had to adopt some decisions that were not beneficial. They forced us to give them all the nuclear weapons, and they were using that when hard political issues were mentioned. Yeltsin said that sometimes at some time we can just stop providing our fuel to Ukraine, and thus we will put all the government on the knees, the government of Ukraine. Through the years of independence, Ukraine having colossal possibilities for cooperation with the West, in this sense, nothing has been done. Neither interconnectors, starting from bringing electricity, and we have the only island that is connecting Ukraine and Europe, Burштynski Point. We were living, as a matter of fact, as a part of ex-united energy system of the Soviet Union. And then when the new challenges for Ukrainian energy arose and we had to develop strategies for survival, first of all, of energy in Ukrainian economy, and this period, as you know, during this period, nothing had been done. However, the most shameful is the period of the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, when straight away it was clear that Russia is going to destroy energy infrastructure. And that started the first year, autumn 2022. Then, during this time, as we already know, not just we, but as a state, Ukrainian state, we haven't developed the strategy, as a matter of fact, of new energy policy under the conditions of destruction of energy infrastructure. And thus, we came till today. And now we just hear from the government and from people's deputies and from specialists who are in Ukrenergo commenting the situation. We are moving towards the catastrophe, and the scale might be like this or like that. However, no one is offering, unfortunately, clear and acting from the side of Ukrainian authorities primarily. That's about this. Efficient plan that would minimize all the threats. Are there opportunities for that? Yes, and huge. Already after the first attacks to energy infrastructure of Ukraine, the Western world has started to fill the Ukraine with small generating capacities. Two largest things were placed on the Energo atom that was mentioned, one kind of already started using a month ago, as if they started. That was mentioned by the Minister Halushchenko, Minister of Energy. But yes or no, no one can confirm for sure. From the other side, there are examples when, in spite of such policy of Ukrainian authorities and the government, the local authorities have started to prepare their infrastructure actively to difficult energy hunger. And today already, for example, in Kharkiv, which is constantly bombarded, well, as a matter of fact, it's being destroyed all the time. However, they have much less blackouts than in Kyiv. There's example of Ivano-Frankivsk, Zhytomyr, Vinnytsia has started to work in this context. Khmelnytsky at the end, which almost fully became autonomous in terms of energy efficiency and energy supply for primarily of energy infrastructure, that is based on certain achievements that are there in the government. However, we still need the government to form the unified strategy, meaning how do we survive this hottest winter. And nevertheless, I didn't know not a single certain, not just proposals, but nothing special. I can just say about the initiative of the government and with use of the draw, as you said. Well, just as you know, already last year, well-known specialist Forrest Shurma, in administration of the president, he started talking about using the resource in order to improve the economy. I'm afraid that this spring, not just from Carpathians, nothing will be left, but from all the forests, with using such a strategy. In my opinion, now we need to focus on those proposals that were already formed by Ukrainian Council of Business, more than 1,000 of entrepreneurs, middle entrepreneurs who generalized everything that can be done urgently, and they presented all of that to the government. It was approximately a month ago. And as for the answers, I haven't seen nor have I heard anything about it. Their proposals are consisting of a complex of steps, how we can satisfy with small generation. The cities ensure critical infrastructure with the energy, and in such a way, we can expect that we will survive the winter. However, instead of that, the Ministry of Energy, for half a year already, even more, they are conducting the agitation campaign on constructing and finalizing Khmelnytsky nuclear power station. Those are some energy blocks and then new generators, small modular reactors. That is, they are talking about some total nonsense before this scary winter, because the well-known fact, any energy nuclear project is implemented within 10 years. China is building atomic reactors the fastest way, 10 years. In other countries, those are 15 years. We need to spend this winter, we need mobile generation, because we need somehow to give it to the energy sector to Ukraine, not to rebuild the communistic energy regime. And as a specialist in this field, I would like to say that we cannot build Khmelnytsky nuclear electric station with Russian reactors, because that is the enemy country. That is the country which will never give the license for that if we will try to take the reactors of Russian production and we will try to build that on our own. It's violation of international law, and in any international court, Ukraine will lose and will pay compensation for this well, at least non-specialized, I would call it this way, step. I would like to end with the words that today is the time for those decisions that will really give Ukrainians the opportunity to spend the winter in Ukraine and not to run and rush somewhere in order to find some place which is warmer. And second, with such a policy, especially from the Ministry of Energy, where all the concentration, focus of attention, instead of creating conditions for distributed energy generation in Ukraine and open negotiations with the West, there's a lot of opportunities for Ukraine, and the focus exclusively on this some kind of crazy and phantasmagoric project of finalizing Russian reactors based on the Khmelnytsky nuclear power plant. Well, the publicity has to force literally the government through Verkhovna Rada, through the committees. They have to force those things that Energoatom is allowing themselves during this catastrophe to stop that and to focus on looking, not even looking for, but implementing something that was already offered to the Ministry of Energy and the government in order to survive this winter peak of the load. Thank you very much. It's quite a lot for the beginning. The only thing I would be brave enough at the beginning to say about today's condition that we are now not connected to Russian system and we are connected. Well, now we have not only. Yeah, it's already as of today. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had the support that we have. Yeah, we will discuss that. That was in the past. Now it is much better. But the thing that to straight this issue, I didn't want to discuss today the things that are mentioned about the blocks. We had the discussion of specialists, like more narrow specialists. However, maybe we will need to do that further on. And I would say we are open to participation and with representatives of ministry and Energoatom. They can provide their arguments. The only thing which was interesting for me in this is that I am communicating with our foreign partners, in particular in terms of support in this field. They say that this is Ukrainian discussion, that's your issue. That is why I decided to talk about that, because they say it's your thing. You decide what kind of strategy there should be and what you should discuss. So my question is to Ambassador, plenipotentiary and extraordinary. So how to ask, what to ask, and maybe even better not to ask, but to make beneficial projects for both, for us and our partners, maybe also strategically. But again, what about now? What can we use? How your experience shows how Ukrainian mechanisms are ready to quick help. Very important questions, answers to which we would like all to hear. Hi everyone. In addition to being the ambassador, I am also the advisor still in Ukrenergo. And in addition to all of that, till June, I've been cooperating with the UNDP, and last year we were making an assessment of damage caused to Ukrainian energy system together with the World Bank, as well as we were making separate studies on available funds regarding combining the markets with the European market. In addition to that, I'm cooperating with NGO Ukraine Facility Platform, where I am the member of coordination committee, and there we are analyzing in general the opportunities and resources available. And recently, in Ukrainian Recovery Conference in Berlin, there was a separate event for decentralized energy. So now this is my focus of attention. I think that is quite clear, because we all need to survive in the conditions of this winter that is approaching us, and also we need to understand how we are gonna live further on and how do we plan our energy system, taking into account the fact that it has lived through such big destructions. As a matter of fact, coal generation was destroyed. It gives us a lot of opportunities, but it creates a lot of problems. I would like to distribute the problems for at least two stages. The first stage for this winter, we need like the plaster that will allow us to survive this winter. And this plaster has, well, it's not 1 gigawatt of gas generation. I don't quite believe in that because I am focusing on the investigations done by Danish Center of Energy supported the Ministry of Energy, which has made a separate report on which technologies might be built in which time frame, as well as now they are making the second edition. They are going to divide that into bigger components and talk about what kind of technologies might be used in the nearest years. So I'd like to start from the plaster, and this plaster is really needed. It is needed in order to ensure availability of critical infrastructure, acting critical infrastructure that will allow us to get water during winter, warmth, and avoid crisis situations because we still all remember Alchevsk. I think this is possible, however, taking into account the question, I think we need a separate appeal, at least from the government or from our donors, an international organization of UN agency, so that they can ensure this emergency mechanism and they can provide as much as possible generating capacities, small capacities, as well as ensure their installment, renovation, and maintenance. Because indeed, a lot was brought in winter period 2022-2023, small generating capacities, generators for hospitals, for schools, and they remained not used because in order to do that, the project has to be made, it has to be implemented, and then we have to ensure the maintenance of those generators during their work because any machinery requires maintenance, just like generators require both maintenance and they require diesel and other fuel. In communities, they don't have resources for that. Neither human capacities nor financial capacities. So if we won't mention that to donors and international organizations that are ensuring provision of such equipment, they will just supply this equipment to us and the equipment will just stand there without functioning. So in my opinion, the plaster is this. As for the more remote prospects, 1, 2, 3 years, those are remote prospects for us, even in spite of the fact that it's really close. Here we have some complex solutions that were found on the level of Kyiv Oblast with analysis of the communities that we've been doing during half a year, taking into account critical infrastructure and the necessity to ensure activity of that critical infrastructure. We've analyzed 4 communities in Kyiv Oblast. Those are Brovary, Bucha, Irpin, and Bila Tsarkva. And we provided together with UNDP the report where we calculated all the possible technologies that should be installed in order to ensure the critical infrastructure functioning. First of all, those are small batteries, those are gas peakers, as this is also wind generation, and it's possible to build that in 3 or 5 years. All of that has to ensure Ukrainian sustainability and power. We all understand that any big object becomes also the object of attention of Russian Federation, and the renovation that has to be done actually on the stations that were destroyed, they don't guarantee us the availability and the possibility of usage of those big stations because it it will be really hard, as far as I understand, to ensure their protection. So no one is protected from the following hits on that recovered electricity generation. So small generation and critical generation in communities remains for us almost the only way for building sustainability, and this sustainability can be built in 3-5 years. Now, of course, we are going to during these times we will be dependent on the import of electricity that we are now getting from the European Union. Technically, it is limited, and most of those limitations are related to the limitations on the substations in Hungary and Romania. And of course, these limitations, maybe we can expand those. I mean, there are the possibilities of some expansion. However, this requires both political will of the management of those countries and additional financial resources for their companies, primarily in Hungary, because Hungary historically was the country through which the biggest capacities for export were going, starting from Soviet Union. So they have the potential of expanding their capacities and for import now this energy in Ukraine. As for the latest news that we've heard back yesterday from the side of our Polish brothers regarding the opportunity of increase in export of electric energy from Poland, well, actually, yeah, that is possible, but this is the most expensive electric energy which is being produced in the neighboring countries. Thank you very much. By the way, just like the President Mr. Duda said, there will be some creative solutions for them. Yeah. So there is also such a moment. So thank you very much for such a beginning. There are some questions. Before that, I will give the floor to Mr. Alexander in order to assess the situation, but very interesting question straight away. We are talking about the strategy 3-5 years. That is also something that will happen in the future after we survive the winter. And here is the second moment. They offer us to try to save. Yeah, we tried that. I personally didn't turn on the air conditioning at home, and I faced criticism from all of my family till the moment when I heard that it's absolutely not helpful in KU. And I realized one simple thing, that people who turned on the inverters and they are charging when there is electricity, they still take this electricity and they spend it just the same way. I understand that not everybody has it, but I think that till winter people want to be prepared. So the question is, still, Mr. Alexander, you're closer to the topic of efficiency of usage of energy. As far as I understand the second part here, it's also interesting to hear that is, in addition to gas generation, like wind, nuclear, what else can be used now quickly in terms of receiving equipment? Because I know I'm communicating with many businessmen and acquaintances of mine. They used to receive a lot of things from China. Now it's more difficult because the supply chains have been violated. So are there such opportunities in Europe that is closer to us? Or can we will, first of all, for business, but maybe you will also say for citizens, how and what can be used faster, just like Mr. Kal mentioned, like some small capacities, maybe. And in general, what do you do in this sense? What would you offer? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Valery Alexeyevich for the invitation. And I would like to mention I'm an engineer. And more than 5 last years, I'm working on drafting the energy infrastructure objects, recovery objects that are using recovery resources. They are really innovative and cool objects, one of the coolest on the level of Europe and European Union.
demonstrating for our HP companies that any Ukrainian businesses, correspondingly the state of Ukraine, can be energy dependent. Taking into account that I have quite historically deep background, I've been working as a city head of the city of Vinnytsia, and I understand what is happening at the level of territorial communities for a long time. I've been working as a head of Oblast administration of Vinnytsia Oblast, and then the head of Ukrainian energy sector in the parliament of Ukraine. I would like to be really objective today, maybe to some extent a bit, Yuri Ivanovich. I will disagree with you because in the last more than 30 years, Ukraine has gone through a totally complicated path to the reforms and looking for own infrastructure and own energy infrastructure, and being in Soviet times the inevitable part of big energy system of the USSR. In 30 years, the method of trying and making mistakes, finally we get rid of the aggressor country, and thanks God. By performing huge complex of legislative, normative, technical agreements to energy system and electric and gas system of the European Union, and the challenges that Ukraine is going through today, when everyday energy infrastructure is physically being destroyed by rockets and drones in different regions, hitting any point, any square meter of the territory of Ukraine. Not a single country in the world has never faced such challenges. And in order to be honest and objective, I think we have to thank Ukrainian energy workers that, in spite of anything, in spite of the weather or shellings or possible wounds, till present time, no matter how hard it is, still we have gas and electric energy with all the problems that we've got. That is the first part. Now answering the question, what do we need to do today? We need to clearly understand that there are different levels of state institutions and roles of the state that has to provide, has to authorize, has to give the tools and launch decisions that were mentioned by Ms. Lana and Yuri Ivanovich mentioned. What I mean here? As a matter of fact, we have four main sectors that we have to ensure with energy resources. The first one are people who are living in rural area or those who are living in the cities. If you're talking about Ukrainian people who are living in regional centers, then the topic of food maybe is relevant for them, because this is also energy resource, no matter how banal it looks like, and they have to have the opportunity to get it, and have the opportunity to get also cheap heat. And as a matter of fact, in 3 months, we have the heating season, and a big concentration has to be at places where there are local authorities, regional authorities, and we need to understand clearly what kind of tools can we use there. Therefore, answering your question, I dare say that we are not just talking about gas turbine generation. We have to talk also about the things that the system of distributed generation in Ukraine has been created thanks to private investment, and the state, as a matter of fact, invested zero into that, and the bioenergy and solar energy, all of that was involved from investments, and it is functioning as of today quite efficiently. As of today, we have to understand clearly that Ukrainian business and some local authorities, as far as I know, are procuring coordination system. Well, that is, these are systems based on natural gas or using biogas or using biomethane. They can produce electric energy and at the same time produce heat in order to consume it. And many companies of Ukrainian businesses are procuring, just like we are, systems for energy storage. Why 2022-2023 years were interesting? Because as a matter of fact, without any help from the state, some regulations and the customs and some tax regulations, we ensured the use of diesel generators. Yeah, it's not the best technology. Yeah, it's expensive. And yes, ecologically, it creates discomfort for everyone, but for small and medium enterprises, it gave the opportunity to work in 2020 to 2023. And if we support those tools, it will help us to survive the winter in 2024. But what does the state have to do as of today? The state has to eliminate all the payments or tax burdens for bringing any energy equipment from abroad. We are not just talking about transformers or something else. Now we are talking about this system of energy storage and integration, their integration to the energy system of Ukraine. Now we are talking about procurement of cogenerational blocks that can be put in each city, in each settlement, at each enterprise, and using natural gas, it will produce heat and give electricity and heating. That's a huge amount of work, and in order to do that, I understand it so that we have the Ministry of Regional Policy that has to organize this work, at least for supporting local authorities and regional authorities in order to help create institutional and financial stimuli and motivators. And therefore, as far as I understand, today we have the Ministry of Economy, which has to help Ukrainian business to take off the workload and to reduce the capex of procurement of the equipment that we are taking to Ukraine today, sometimes making us pay some additional payments at customs or in the customs office in order to open this corridor in full. And I dare say that I know more than a dozen of Ukrainian companies. Well, I guess if we are talking about storage systems, those are dozens and dozens of megawatts of capacities. And they are signing contracts today, and they might be installed in the nearest time. I know that those are hundreds of megawatts of capacities of cogenerational blocks for enterprises, average and big, that will help to survive this winter. But what is lacking here? From my point of view, those are two things. First of all, lack of synergy, synergetic management and role of the state that has to synchronize and help and quickly react and quickly create different motivators. Well, for example, I can offer the first option. As of today, if for the new equipment we had, so to say, the minimization of the capex for 10%, then we could have brought 20% more equipment. Today, the Green Party has big debt for the state in terms of calculation. So let us say the state is ready to give away the debt if those are ready to invest into the storage systems and new technologies that will be installed in autumn 2024 and such options. There is a lot of them. But we need to react quickly to this. And the last thesis I would like to mention about international organizations, I guess, yeah, we thank them a lot because the support is huge and a lot of equipment and the so-called iron that we are installing. Unfortunately, the big part is not installed due to certain reasons. However, it's already the third year under the conditions of war. How many new military technologies, new brands, new military weapons we know that we need as of today? Energy, such energy frontline, just like war. And here we also have some new weapons, new technologies, we have new innovations that are needed today in order to protect energy safety of our country. And we need very rapid help from the side of international organizations because as far as I know, sometimes I would like to underline one more time that we are really grateful to them, but I know that dozens, if not millions of dollars are there on the accounts, and international organizations, they know how to use that properly, whom to give that, and how to implement that into an efficient energy infrastructure. From the other side, from the side of Ukraine, we don't have a clear message how to properly invest that. Just give it to us and we will use that later on. So I think that there's almost no time left. And I would say that Ukrainian business is doing a lot in order to survive this winter. But we have to think, like, if Ukrainian business will survive, if we will generate dozens of millions of additional kilowatts of electric energy, then this electric energy, we won't take it from the network, and it will be for people, for settlements, for territorial communities. Therefore, there are solutions. They are well known, they are installed, they are multiplied as of today. But we need to add some dynamics to those decisions. Thank you. Let me start from you, maybe, and ask the question. Very optimistic speech, you know. Well, we have nothing else left just to be realistic optimists or optimistic realists. If you allow me on the level of the consumer, I will say my doubts about the woods because we were encouraged to gas heaters, and there was a whole campaign, and loans were given, and people had gas heating, and they are just not adjusted to this. So, yeah, the decision might exist, but I will ask a question. I understand your approach. Yeah, right. We have to have everything diversified, but what I like most, I want to understand the state, even during the war, has to be why do we need all those ministries, like the Ministry of Regional Development, I guess? Does it exist? Because it seems to me that the minister is not there and the ministry isn't called this way. There is state function of regional development. Yes, so my question is, should we as citizens ask about performing of those functions, or should we just indeed go and buy everything that is there and survive on our own? Because there is no, yeah, I want to ask that. Well, according to logics, it's better to have some installments for businesses and to save for people. And the responsibility for people is on the state. And again, as for the payment, they are seeing the possibility, like to pay for that or not. This is responsible policy. And instead, I see just the encouraging to look for some ways for self-survival. There is a claim from the ministry, the cabinet of ministers, what has to be done till winter by people. It says wood, it says batteries, it says everything, like lighters, matches, and candles. Is there a solution, just like you say, and you said, yeah, people need to have water for a month at least. You understand, right? So the task in the apartment to have the water. I've heard them. I will do that, but it's not the solution, you know, because we all won't be able to do this. You have a really good idea. It sounds good, but can we, like this amount that will cover with the help of the state, well, they will take generation by different ways, including increased energy efficiency. Will this amount be enough for the state to cover the needs of the population? Well, it's hard to me to speak from the side of all the state because I don't have the data for the last years, but I can be responsible for our work in this company. In the last 3 months, we introduced into exploitation since like from the beginning of March, we installed 11 megawatts of solar energy on the roofs. Now we are procuring with our own money, without any loans, without any support of the state, any support of international organizations and institutions. More than 30 generation blocks on my megawatt will have 8 megawatts, 8 million of heat. I know as of today approximately 400 megawatts of such capacities, co-generational, procured by Ukrainian businesses. So rule number one, the state should not stand in the way of Ukrainian businesses to survive. Then, if possible, create conditions, give financial tools, if possible, with the help of international institutions and international organizations, and then Ukrainian business will transform itself. In 2022, in a very complicated beginning of war, we
showed that even at the cost of big and average diesel generators, we supported all our industry in Ukraine. As for people, the state is bearing full 100% responsibility for people. However, local self-governments and local authorities are there, and you need to give them the technologies, set up technologies, equipment where it can be procured on competitive basis, and give the financial tools, money, how to buy and to help install all of that, to teach how to do that. Because, well, today we are living in the framework of non-classical peaceful Ukraine and preparing to winter. We are living in the conditions of cynical and aggressive war, and we don't even imagine right now what might be there tomorrow, because every day, almost like some objects of energy infrastructure are being ruined. Thank you. Thank you very much. You actually answered the question. As for tomorrow, yeah, I agree. Let us be honest that we have all seen what happened in Kyiv, what kind of hits were there, and that means that I will say so. Now there will be investigation, but we can already see that that Russian rocket that hit the child's hospital, the rocket with wings that had a hit first time, and they are using new approaches for murdering people, and that means that we might come to different level of the problem, catastrophe or serious problem. And in this sense, it seems very simple thing. When we will have ruination and we will have this destruction, today or tomorrow we are expecting the claim of on additional air defense devices in Washington, but the decision is external to take the import electricity. That is, Ms. Elena, you already mentioned about the problems, capacities, all of that. Second, I can hear what can be provided from external. They provide us with money for financing of this sector and stability in this sector. Why can't or can money for energy stability external be used for communities, for example, where you've been working? For some communities, what are the mechanisms? I mean, when we conducted the project together with USAID of our center on the capacity of communities, it turned out that they cannot make the procurement and burn the waste because there's a lot of regulational issues. They cannot finalize that even when they have money. How to reduce these problems? I'm interested in an external component. Can we cover this somehow? Well, I will start then from a bit different issue. First of all, I disagree with the fact that the state has to bear full responsibility for us. It's really infantile position, and I'm against that because I am for self-organization. Yes, indeed, we have to think about self-organization and local authorities. It's also about self-organization at places. Yes, indeed, there are really developed communities that for 10 years already they are trying to solve, and they are solving all their problems related both with the municipal services, the quality of those municipal services, energy efficiency, and ensuring critical infrastructure. Such examples exist. They are very positive, but their possibilities are limited by internal regulations, and that it's impossible to involve some external financial tools for giving loans. These mechanisms are limited by the Ministry of Finance, and the guarantees that are provided by the Ministry of Finance are not disseminated to local bodies. This has to be solved, and the limitations and the possibilities to involve money by the communities now it is one of the critical issues in terms of solving the energy issue.
What I'd like to mention here as well is that energy system should not be full Shanghai. That is still joining the general network, not create many islands inside of the country. And we have to treat that with sense and with strategy, because even covering some urgent needs, we still need to approach this as a system which is functioning for the whole country. We have specialists who do understand how to approach that. We have the opportunity to do all of that in a way which provides for planning and which will be more sustainable than just to put a lot of generators that will work and pollute the air, even though we really need that for this winter. As for whether we have the opportunity to involve some money, we have a lot of partners who are talking about hundreds of millions given to Ukraine. But these hundreds of millions don't always come to us. It's more like we don't receive this. And here we also have the two levels of problem. The first one is because we internally we disagree in our requests to donors and partners. Why do we need financing? And in Ukraine facility plan, it is mentioned that the first priority for us is to build nuclear blocks. Second priority, decentralized energy. But we have no strategy and approaches to that decentralized generation. Therefore, everybody imagines their own decentralized thing, how it should look like. As for Ukrainian businesses, then they also have some limited capacities and use of financial tools that are available. And I think you will support me that only those companies that already had experience of working with international financial institutions can now get financing. Not a single small Ukrainian company which wants to create their own decentralized generation or cogeneration cannot just get the financing from some international fund or from international partner, and Ukrainian money provided via Ukrainian banks. It's very expensive. We were talking about that in Berlin. That Ukrainian business would be ready to build, but money for capex. It's very expensive. And in this situation, when we cannot predict development of political situation and military situation, this becomes a problem which requires solutions. And this solution has to be found together with international organizations, financial organizations that currently haven't changed their rights of providing financing to Ukrainian businesses and in general work on the Ukrainian market. Thank you so much. In addition to this, I would like to mention from my own experience, I've seen one certain thing that you said money is expensive, but when you're offered 500 million euros for implementation, in terms of not a loan, but the grant, and this 500 million cannot be taken by any single mayor of the three big cities in Ukraine. And the reason is that donors are saying, we are ready to do that. That's what I've been working on. We are ready to do that, but not via your central authorities, but directly through the cities. How do you think, did someone allow them to do it? Cities cannot provide financial guarantees. It's forbidden. How can we make it that it's not forbidden? 500 million grant was given for purifying the water in this case, but it's 500 million grant. Cities have to approve that with central bodies. What has to be done? Amendments in legislation or what? Change the policy. Yeah, I'm really happy, but what can we do, like the deputies and others, for this position to be changed? Otherwise, what you are saying, it won't move anywhere. If we will have to ask everything like in the office of the president, something. One of the mayors was very sincere and he said he doesn't want to work with donors because for that he needs to work with the Ministry of Finance, and he's been going through that already. And when the Deputy Minister of Finance was changed, he had to go through this path again and again. Maybe we don't need a ministry in this function. You know that we need it. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I do understand that. But, well, I do understand that here we won't find the solution in one time, but I still have one question. Once we've been talking, we were talking about diversification of nuclear fuel and generation at the cost of small nuclear reactors, for example. A lot of things were mentioned many years, and now I can feel that neither the reactors are there. And I'm interested, by the way, have they ever existed in some regions of the world? Have they been used? And as an example, just maybe you will offer some other decision or solution. What can be done right now in this sector? Economy, some optimization, or nuclear reactors. I do understand that they won't be covered if we do it this way. We bring them here, or like what can be their nuclear energy? Well, not strategic, as we've said, but now in Zaporizhia station, the same story. What about it? If possible, I will say one word to the discussion. I started that independent Ukraine had to develop totally different energy strategy, and the fact that only in 2022, before the full-scale aggression, we just stopped joining the ex-Soviet system. Now it's Russian or Belarusian. It's not telling us about the efficient strategy of Ukrainian governments and Ukrainian parliament. Now, from the discussion that I've heard, again, everything is about the efficiency of our central authorities to generate the adequate energy policy, which is needed for survival, energy survival of Ukraine. It's gone. Because, yeah, I'm sorry, but again, the same. Ministry of Energy is focusing all the attention on phantasmagorical projects, I will repeat myself, of finalizing Khmelnytsky nuclear power station. And all we are talking about first should be the Ministry of Energy as a center for forming and very quick response to all the questions that are originating from Russian aggression. And the new challenges are originating every day. We don't know what will happen next, what will Russia do next, so that we are on the edge of energy catastrophe. Therefore, in this sense, I want at least our specialized discussion or talk to be aiming at the Ministry of Energy primarily, which with its functions and first of all should give answer that our colleagues were violating. That is first of all, and then the government that is making the decision, and the parliament which is giving various decisions. But it all starts from the ministry. For 6 years I've been the Ministry of Nuclear Safety. We started from the scratch every day regarding the legislation which was adequate to modern democratic countries. Already in 5 years, we had all the European ecological legislation, more than 20 laws, and it was generated by the ministry. Such policy of Ministry of Energy, I did not observe that during all the years of independence. 4 convocations in the Parliament Energy Committee, the minister, and all the time with Ministry of Energy, just total fights. Coming back to your question about nuclear energy of Ukraine might be efficient only when there are elements that are making it independent. Or when, till today, well, before the full-scale war, we We're buying from the aggressor since 2014. They are official aggressors according to international law. Yeah, but we had efficient. Yeah, but we've been buying from the aggressor, the nuclear fuel. And the topic of diversification of supply of nuclear fuel was born at the beginning of the 90s. I will repeat myself, in cooperation with Westinghouse, that was ready to build in 4 years. And in Chavtivoda, the production of valves for Ukrainian nuclear energy program, and the state nuclear, and we're doing nothing in this sense. I'm sorry, but our time is limited. So small nuclear reactors, and the second moment, what is the difference in Zaporizhia station? What kind of fuel and reactors were there if it was captured? That's a bit different discussion. What can be used now, not in building for the future, but the question, small nuclear reactors. Well, small nuclear reactors fire prospects because they haven't been finalized for mass use. China, by the way, has started to proving and proved finally the development to industrial use. However, as for now, as for small modular nuclear reactors, they're not massively used because they are still raw, to be honest. Second, small modular reactors still its prospect maximum of 10 years. I mean, at least 10 years. Today we are talking about energy survival in the conditions of war. What kind of modular reactors? Therefore, I am focusing attention all the time that they are doing the wrong things together with Ministry of Energy in the conditions of survival. As for Zaporizhia nuclear station, you're right. It's a colossal problem, not just Ukraine, but the whole Europe, as a matter of fact, because the station is in critical condition. And even very loyal experts of Mageti are talking about that, and no one can prognose what might happen with Zaporizhia nuclear station. No one can say that. None of experts or specialists. Therefore, as for this, the only possible way or option how to do that is only to disseminate on all the international levels from the side of the Ministry of Energy and Energoatom information about sanctions for the Russian nuclear plants and cost pressure via IAEA and other international organizations for Russians to free the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. And the last one is the war shows the only way of producing energy, electric energy, where Russia cannot bombard it because, as you know, that might lead to catastrophe, nuclear catastrophe, and that is threatening not just Ukraine but all the other countries of Europe. So in this sense, the prospects of nuclear energy for Ukraine is huge. I don't mind these prospects, but I'm just saying that today we are talking about urgent measures aiming at survival, energy survival of Ukraine. Today, not in 10 years. Thank you. Thank you so much. I will say one thing, that these are the trackers of yesterday's flights to Khmelnytsky and readiness station power plant. They are making kind of loop, kind of giving us a tip. Well, we have no clue what is happening. They've got like Chernobyl nuclear plant and Zaporizhia nuclear plant, if not from the air, then from the land. But I think we can take questions from the room. We have 2 questions, so please give the microphone. So present yourself, and we would like you to say who you are asking the question to. And if possible, then please, not about the whole development in 30 years of the energy, but between 20 years, Vice President of Academy of Energy Ukraine, 28 years, the founder of Atlantic Council, big Ukrainian business is building and built generation in Poland, Slovakia, Romania. They already made it. So everything starts. In official data, the Polish people are saying that the self-cost is 60-80 euros. We have 120 and higher. On the 30th of May, the cabinet ministers made a resolution that Ukrainian business has to at least 80% use the import energy. In the context of what you've said, national development, etc., etc., I sent to Dombrovsky and you this resolution to WhatsApp, to Bakivets. What's that? 80%. The business has, as of today, to. Yeah, thank you. I don't know where and what you've sent, but probably the question is while we were speaking, you sent that. Yeah, good job. Look at screen and give your answer. Yeah, we are importing today almost 80%, but not because we have to import 80%, but because as of today, first of all, sometimes the price for electric energy and import is cheaper than the price of Ukrainian electric energy. And position number two, if you're importing, then the resolution doesn't allow you to reduce or to turn up the capacities of generation of using the electric energy. And that is very important for big Ukrainian businesses. Therefore, here are very important moments that you didn't pay your attention to, but of course that's bad. However, under these conditions, yeah, we have such rules, so what should we do with that? Well, if possible, just two examples. So, Valery Alexeyevich, I know what the country will do in the next hours, in the very cynical way, they will do everything possible, impossible, and cynical in order to destroy Ukrainian energy infrastructure. We know the key. We won't talk about that, but we know the key elements, key points that have to be protected as possible. Well, Patriots or any other air defense systems. And another example, Slovenia. If we are building like solar station investor is investing, they get the compensation of capex 20-25%. If today the private business of Slovenia is buying the systems of energy storage that are an important element of any energy system, they are getting compensation on capex 50%. How? If we would have had such rules, then as of today we would have had not 2 megawatts of systems of storage, 2 megawatts. And at the time when in the USA, the storage system, more than 20 gigawatts. Can you feel the difference? In Ukraine, as of today, we should have had in these conditions at least 1 gigawatt of capacities of the systems of storage. And we have just 2 megawatts. One we have and one DTAC. This is the state policy. This is what kind of state policy has to be taken into account, how to correct that. Yeah, indeed. These are the capacities that will, hardly. Your question, please present yourself. Hanna Shishkina, Rebuild Ukraine Project. My question is to Ms. Zerkal. Thank you very much for your comment about the self-help. And actually from here, I have the question to you, Mr. Dombrovsky. In such situation as now, the principle of self-help subsidiarity that is taking the problem to the level where it is and it has to be solved, what has to be done by conscious citizen, conscious business, conscious local self-government, well, in state bodies at the end? Wow, you asked really program question. The conscious citizen has to understand that hoping that all his or her problems will be solved by the state, they cannot do that. They have to get rid of mystical thinking, and they don't have to wait for the wizard that will solve all the issues. There are very interesting examples how people are organizing themselves in the apartments, in the buildings with multiple apartments, and they try to ensure that the water will go to the upper floors and the elevators will work no matter whether there is electric supply or not. It's important to do that because not everybody can not everybody can participate in financing of such projects. However, understanding even the fact that 20-30% in the houses of people can cope with additional expenditures to ensure such equipment, then they should do that. Well, it's indeed the first place that has to make situation easier during the winter period. As for the communities, how they should solve their issues, then first of all, they have to understand whether indeed the mayors who are working for the community solve the problems of the community or their own business. Because indeed, a lot of questions about building the waste burning plants that might become a code generation at places. It depends on how the sorting of waste is done and who is working on waste management at places. In Ukraine, this is historical issue. Historically, it is painful, and historically, it is such that it's not solved due to a range of corruptional reasons. And also, the mayors don't want to risk and increase the payment for waste removal. And it might be one of the parts of complex solution for reduction the payment for heating. Of course, it requires more systemic and complex approach to all the municipal services because in the municipal housing, for example, the water purifying structures are taking the most, and in many communities those water purifying structures, they are inefficient, they are outdated, and they have to be substituted, and start with that. Heat centrals, this is also a painful topic. Yeah, we have to go for painful topics. And what else is the issue that the businesses at places have to be done not but just by the mayor family, but also other citizens and participants of those communities. This revolutionary proposal. But then thank you very much for your question. But technical cybernetics is the main specialty that I had. I like to systemize processes. So the answer, there are conscious people with money, conscious people without money, and there are unconscious people with money and unconscious people without money. Therefore, out of the four groups, just one can do something conscious and those who have some financial resources. However, from the other side, I dare say that, like the same with the territorial communities, there are cities, territorial communities who have some money and they have cool mayors who are working for people, and there's absolutely different thing. Therefore, there should be mention of the state rules of the game. And maybe adding to the things mentioned by Ms. Lana about burning the waste. It's a long story. I can talk about that for a long time because we had hot debates in the parliament when we wanted to adopt relevant legislation. However, as of today, if I'm not mistaken, plus minus 150 megawatts of bioheaters that are working on biomass, they are not generating because as of today, the rules of the game, the prices formulated for procuring the waste, for compensation of certain financial guarantees, well, it is not beneficial. It's not economically viable because you need to buy biomass every day, and 150 megawatts are not working. You have to get to waste, you have to sort it, build, and do. And here, 150 megawatts have live capacities, and as of today, they are not being used. That's it. It is saying that we need to change the paradigm of efficiency of the system state management. That's it. Thank you very much. Now we won't be able to change that in one day. I thank you very much because you asked a lot of questions that, yeah, I do understand that it's hard to solve, but when they are solved, if not during the threat of war, I will just mention one thing. With the experience of work and the Council of National Defense, I would say that maybe I won't fully agree with the word infantile. What is meant here? That to some extent the task of the citizen who can cope with that on their own, and when you have a system, for example, of supply
of like the sewerage and water supply. It works till the 7th floor, and then you have to have your own equipment to supply. So then it's not the issue of sewerage in Kyiv. It's not the problem of Mr. Ivanov, Petrova, Chernenko, but it's a problem of national security. That's what we are talking about. That is, the state has to be ready. That self-organization of citizens and their consciousness, well, to be honest, as of today, will not cover such extraordinary situations. So I like when the state takes into account those risks, take into account that even the elevator, to finance the elevator. Okay, I'm grateful. A lot of things to consider, but I am really grateful to those who are asking questions. Thank you for sending the proposals. Thank you to our really professional participants, Ms. Lana Zerkal and Mr. Dombrovsky. And I think that I hope that there's a lot of issues and somewhere we have to answer them in the future. Thank you today for coming and give us the opportunity to listen your ideas and your offers.